Wide feet. They're like regular feet, but wider, which begs the question, which boots are best for wide feet? What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you the best boots for wide feet from every single brand. Those brands include Nike, Adidas, Puma, Mizuno, Under Armour, New Balance, and Umbro. Not every brand technically, but certainly the most relevant ones. So for those that regularly ask which boots are best for wide feet, this video is for you. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, don't forget to support it with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time and you don't want to miss out on future videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. Before we get into this video, it's important to note that everyone has different feet, shape, width, volume, all kinds of variety out there, which is why most brands make boots that are going to fit as many people as possible. Nobody really makes a boot that's designed specifically for wide feet or narrow feet. They try to make a shape, they try to use materials, they try to make a boot that most people are going to like the feel of. Now, of course, everyone has personal preferences and not every boot is going to fit you perfectly, even though they're designed to fit most people, which is of course why I'm making this video. There are certain boots that are going to be better suited for wider foot type. It's also worth noting that if your feet are really wide, it's very unlikely that you're going to find a specific boot that's going to fit you perfectly out of the box. There's always going to be some kind of adjustment period, a break-in period, if you will, where the upper is going to have to stretch to the shape of your feet, and the only way to achieve that is just by wearing the boots. This also means that if you do have wide feet, boots with a leather upper will stretch more, therefore will be wider after some break-in time. So for the most part, leather boots are going to be better suited for wide feet, but in this video, I'll do my best to give you options, both leather and synthetic, from every single brand. Please also keep in mind that this list is exclusive to current models, so any older boots that are no longer in production will not be on this list. With all that out of the way, let's get started. So starting off with Nike, this is a brand that obviously has a lot of variety right now, and honestly, I think that most of their boots are pretty well suited for people with wide feet. Mercurials aside, because that is a tighter fitting boot that isn't really going to stretch much. This generation of Mercurial is definitely wider than what the line has been in the past. But Mercurials aside, if you have wider feet, you're probably going to be comfortable in most of what Nike has on offer. But if you're asking me what their widest boot is right now, it would be the Nike Premier 2. Full kangaroo leather upper, which is obviously going to be decently wide out of the box because of the more traditional construction, but after some break-in time, the leather will stretch, and these will be wide enough to fit just about anybody. If you prefer something a little bit more modern, the Nike TIEMPO line is definitely the way to go. The top-end Legend 7 Elite is one of the best, if not the best, kangaroo leather boots on the market, and because it is kangaroo leather, it will offer a decent amount of stretch. However, if your feet are super wide and you're looking to perhaps save a little bit of money, going for the $130 Pro variation of the Legend 7 rather than the top-end Elite will actually allow for a little bit more stretch and really 90% of all the features you get on the Legend 7 Elite. And if you'd rather stay away from leather boots altogether, honestly, I think the HYPERVENOM Phantom 3 and the Phantom Vision Elite are both pretty solid options in regards to having a decent amount of width. Granted, they're not going to be as wide as the leather options that I just talked about, especially ones broken in, because they're not going to stretch nearly as much, but the base shape, I would say, is wide enough for most people. Moving on to Adidas, just like Nike, they have a lot of different lines, but most of their boots are built around a sprint frame sole plate, which makes the fit variety not quite as significant as what you'll find from Nike. But if you're looking for the widest possible boots from the Adidas brand, and really the widest boots out there from any brand, I would say, the one that you should take a look at is the Adidas COPA MUNDIAL. It's a pretty good value with a retail price of $150. They're made in Germany, full kangaroo leather upper, obviously a very old school look, feel, and design. Nothing really feels like a COPA MUNDIAL, but if comfort is a priority, you don't mind having something that's perhaps a little bit more bulky and heavily padded, and of course you need boots that are extremely wide, this is what you want to look at. However, I do realize that most people these days probably don't want something as old school as a COPA MUNDIAL, especially if you're a little bit younger, which is why the next best option for wide feet from Adidas would be the COPA 18.1. Again, full kangaroo leather upper, but still a lightweight construction with the sprint frame base, a fairly aggressive stud pattern. Yes, there's some goofiness about the tongue and the overall design, but as far as width is concerned, they have a quality fit and offer a decent amount of width. And of course, because they're leather, they will stretch as you break them in. And if you're looking for something that isn't leather from the Adidas brand, my recommendation would be the X18.1. It's a speed boot. It's probably not what you would expect as far as a recommendation for wider feet, and they're definitely not as wide as the two other boots that I mentioned, but in terms of overall shape, these do offer a decent amount of width to them. There's a decent amount of volume as well. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that because this does have a one-piece construction, the opening isn't particularly big. So if your feet are super wide, putting these on and taking them off might be a little bit of a struggle, but once your foot is in there, it's very likely that they will fit you quite comfortably. Also, just because it is kind of a popular thing right now, if you have really wide feet and you were considering laceless boots from the Adidas brand, maybe they're worth a go. I would say out of all of them right now, the Preds are going to be the widest, but the overall base shape and volume of this boot as a whole is not as wide as the other boots that I mentioned. And then when you're talking about the Nemesis or the X laceless variations, neither of those are particularly wide either. So if you have really wide feet, I'd probably stay away from laceless boots at the moment. Moving on to Puma, a brand that does not have the variety of Nike and Adidas, but what they do have on offer is pretty solid for wide feet. Of course, if you can find an old school Puma King, something that they are making outside of North America, not particularly popular here at the moment, full leather upper, traditional design, kind of like an Adidas COPA MUNDIAL, that's going to be a great option if you have wide feet. But if you're looking at their two main lines, I would personally recommend the Puma Future 2.1. Even if you can get the older Puma Future 18.1, those are solid as well. Not a big difference between the two, but this is a boot that will legitimately fit just about anybody. Very versatile in regards to its fit, mainly because of the net fit system that allows you to change up the lacing system. Now, obviously that's not going to help you change the base shape of the boots, but the base shape will allow for just about any kind of foot width. However, when you change up the lacing system, especially if you have wider feet, if you lace them up closer to the top, it's going to allow for more stretch and expansion in the lower parts of the upper and be a lot more comfortable for wide feet. However, if you have slightly narrower feet, you can lace them a little bit lower down. It'll grab more of the upper, allow for less stretch, and give you a tighter fit. So whether you have wide feet, narrow feet, regular width feet, or just weird shaped feet in general, this is definitely one of those boots that you might want to consider. I will also mention that the Puma 1.1 isn't a bad option if you have wide feet either. Specifically, the kangaroo leather version is the one that I would go for. Obviously, the leather in the 4-foot toe box, while internally reinforced, is still going to offer a decent amount of width and stretch to it. And the midfoot as a whole, the base shape does have a decent amount of width. Just keep in mind that when you tie the laces tight, there's going to be a little bit more tightness and grab through the midfoot area than what you'll find from the Puma Futures. Moving on to Mizuno, this is a brand that's all about high quality leather boots, which is why the Mizuno Morelia 2, specifically the made in Japan variation, if you're willing to spend the extra money, is the way to go if you have wide feet. Again, it kind of looks like a Copa Mundial in regards to having that old school styling, but the overall feel and shape of this boot is a lot more modern than it looks. So you get the width of something like a Copa without the sloppiness and I guess bulkiness of what that shoe has on offer. They're expensive, yes, but you definitely get what you pay for. While not as wide as the Morelia, the Rebula also wouldn't be a bad option if you have wider feet, but still like a snug fitting boot. The overall base shape is a lot more modern, a lot more low profile, and just tighter in general, but because the upper is kangaroo leather, after some wear time, it will stretch a decent amount and accommodate a decently wide foot. Again, not as wide as the Morelia, and if you were wondering about the Neos, stay away from the Neos if you have wide feet, because they're just not wide. Moving on to Under Armour, their option that would be well suited for wide feet is not typically what you would see as a wide foot option. And of course, I'm talking about the extremely underrated Under Armour Magnetico Pro, which is the thinnest football boot possibly ever, certainly in regards to what's currently available. And if you're looking for the truest barefoot feel that you'll likely ever experience from a pair of boots, this is the one to go for, especially if you have wide feet. This synthetic upper is so thin, but somehow so soft and has this little bit of stretch to it that when you put them on, especially given that this does have a more traditional design with a central lacing system and a regular old tongue, it will accommodate just about any foot shape straight out of the box. No break-in time required, just a matter of getting used to how these boots feel. But if you have wide feet and if you're looking for something that has that barefoot kind of speed boot-esque type sensation, there is not a better option out there for you than the Magnetico Pro. Moving on to New Balance, obviously a brand that hasn't made the greatest boots over the last couple of years, but at the moment, their two offerings I think are really, really good. And if you have wide feet in particular, the New Balance TEKELA 1.0 Pro I think is a really solid option. This upper is soft, it's flexible. It does remind me of the Magnetico to a certain extent, although not nearly as thin. And the overall base shape of this boot I think is very good if you do have wider feet. It's not gonna stretch a lot, but again, I think these will fit most people quite comfortably. What is unique about New Balance though is that they do actually offer wide fit variations of both the TEKELA as well as the Furon, which I've only tried both in the regular width variations, and the regular width Furon I would say is too tight if you do have wide feet. I haven't tried the wide fit variations of either of these two boots, but given how wide the TEKELA is, I can only assume the wide fit variation is even wider than that, and I'm going to assume that the Furon is going to be a significant bit wider as well. So if you have really wide feet and you're into New Balance, they do offer wide fit variations of their two current models. And then finally we have Umbro, which is again not the most popular brand at the moment, and because they're not popular, they're not necessarily readily available in most places. However, if you want Umbro boots and you do have wide feet, going for something like the Umbro Speciale, the old school leather boot, kind of like a COPA MUNDIAL style, that's going to be ideal. However, if you're looking at some of their more modern stuff, I would personally go for the MEDUSAE 2 Pro, which isn't super wide, I will say that. It's not a particularly wide base, but it does have kangaroo leather. It will stretch out a little bit over time. Not the best option for super wide feet, but they will fit most people. And those are the best boots for wide feet from every single relevant brand. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. If by chance you're interested in any of the boots that I talked about in today's video, there'll be a link down below in the description to the super deals page on my website, where you'll find all kinds of different boots available at discounted prices with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you can pick up some brand new boots well below the normal retail price. Be sure to check that out. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comments and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you're not subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one.